He's a well-known face in Islamic circles, in Islamic finance circles in India. I take great pleasure on behalf of Rehbar to welcome you, brother, to Bangalore and to this program. I take great pleasure in introducing our speaker to all of us over here, briefly. Brother Abdur Raheem is a Director of Finance in Kerala Institute of Medical Sciences. He wears many hats, that's just one role. He is also the founding MD of Alternative Investment and Credits Limited, based out of Cochin. And this works to facilitate Sharia compliant business investments in business based on profit and loss sharing. And AICL, which is Alternative Investment and Credits Limited, has a decade-long track record in the field and is a pioneer in self-sustain in Kerala, excuse me. Abdur Raheem is a professional chartered accountant as well, and he is an internationally serving expert in Islamic finance and development. He is also involved in numerous social and educational projects geared to the upliftment of the community. Brother Raheem, I take great pleasure to invite you to the mic to address us on the topic Economic Development Alternative Approach. After the guest speaker speaks, inshallah we will have a question and answer session at the end of the talk. Brother C. Abdur Raheem.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam. My dear brothers and sisters, first of all, it's an honor for me to stand before you, such an august and intellect gathering. I want to express my immense gratitude to the Sharif, Abdul Kader, and rest of my friends who gave me the opportunity to be here. I also pray that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this, whatever I am saying, and the time is spent in listening as an amal sariya. Amen. I want to take an anticipatory failure. I am neither a speaker or orator, nor an economist, not even I should not mention the word even a scholar. I am a student of Islam in general, and I am a student of Islamic economics and Islamic finance in particular. The idea is to share a few of things I have learned during the process of last 10 to 15 years in studying these subjects. I also want you to know that what I am trying to present here is not a structured chapter by chapter roadmap to an alternative development, but it is an abstract, a few ideas, so that people who are experts, economists and administrators in public administration can take it and develop a structured work. I have the opportunity and privilege of presenting a similar thing about 6 months back with the Chamber of Commerce representatives in Cochin. I understand that after that, a couple of PhD students has taken it as a project, and they are starting to, or they are trying to put it into a structured form so that this can be used in handbook. Later on, eventually, inshallah, we have an opportunity to use it. With those introductory words, I would like to, as I said, I cannot speak Luxembourg. I have to use this gadget and whatever I have written here because I need to refer back and forth. So you need to excuse me for that. To 45 minutes if I rush it through. Again, the challenge is economics is a subject. It's a very dry subject. Those who have studied it will probably know. And probably the timing is also 8 o'clock with time for dinner. So I will be standing between you and the dinner if I stay here longer. So I will try to finish it as quick as possible and probably will some time for interaction if there are few questions or clarifications required later. What I've done is, as I said, it's not a speech, so I have kind of a class. So I have structured the presentation. I will give some definitions. The subject is economic development and ethical approach. We'll go through some of the systems of development so far. As you know, internationally, the nations of the world has been going through a planned development after the Second World War. It's about 6 or 7 decades, about 70 years. This planned development is in vogue internationally. So we'll go through a few of those justice systems. Then we will ask ourselves why we need to introduce ethics to this system, what happened so far. Look at some of the alternatives and we'll take it from some discussion if possible. When you talk about economic development, we need to know what is economics first of all. This is a big misnomer. It's a total disconnect what is real economics and what is practice today. Economics is an issue and activity that involves money or wealth, but more importantly, that's a system which regulates human behavior in meeting their unlimited wants against limited resources. As Dr. Mustaq Saab said here, our resources are limited. The wants of human being is unlimited. So the most important challenging question or task for us is how do you balance this? And that's all the economics is all about. So therefore, it can relate to individuals, it can relate to a nation or a society or a community. And it has to be, since there are human beings involved in it, you cannot measure it in terms of money alone. The result of an economic development has to be measured in human welfare. I'm not saying this as a new. If those who study basic economics, there is these two school of thoughts among the prominent Western economists. One is the welfare economics and the wealth economics. So this debate has been going on right from the inception of the subject economics was introduced to the world. But if you look at it, in economic development, unless it brings human welfare, I don't think we can call it even development. When it is for a development, it is a positive indicator. It should have an impact on your living condition. Again, a development to be ideal and suitable should be equitable and fair. It cannot be biased or prejudiced to one section of the society neglecting the other. It should be inclusive of irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the region, irrespective of the community. At the same time, for it should be good enough, it should be able to take us at par with the international level. Otherwise, we will be talking about the disparity between the West and the East, the North and the South, centuries from now. It also should be sustained. You cannot have a quick development for a few years, then big disaster for the next 5 years. That is not a genuine or ideal development. In fact, after 50 years of planned development and saying the disastrous result, when Kofi Annan was the UN Secretary General, in a special meeting of the UN, they defined, what together the experts that they defined what is development. And they put a millennium goal in 2000, in year 2000, so that the world achieve a development which is defined by United Nations. The United Nations has defined development not just a GDP growth, but it has elimination of poverty in it, achievement of primary education, gender equality, reduction in child mortality, improvement in material health, combating deadly diseases, and more importantly, ensuring environmental sustainability and a global partnership. So in this globalized world, one nation cannot develop and another nation can be underdeveloped all along. That will be a lot of imbalances, and that's what is happening in the Middle East, as you know, migration issues. So these are the overall definition of development. It's not just increase in income or increasing wealth. It's not development. United Nations itself has recognized that, and the national members of the United Nations has passed a unanimous resolution for their countries to go and do the development based on this definition. But unfortunately, they have achieved nothing in practice. Again now, we said economic development ethical approaches. What is ethics now? It is very difficult to define ethics, but we can explain it. Ethics actually has a relationship between man and his self, because first of all, as the scholars and our scripture says, a man has a responsibility, commitment to himself first. That is, first of all, he has to be ethical to himself. And of course, there is man and his God. We have obligations to our Creator. We have obligations to our fellow men, family and society. And we have, more importantly, obligations to our fellow creatures. Therefore, essentially the source of ethics is religion. I mean, you like it or not, the communists sometimes say that we are also ethical, but they don't have a source to point out. They don't have an authority to point out that this is our source of ethics, so this is the way we define our ethics. But only religion has the source of ethics, and therefore we cannot, when we talk about ethics, we cannot just bypass religion. When it becomes a religion and a God and the co-creators and other elements in the universe, it becomes a belief system. Very simple. So ethics, there should be a divine source. It should be a part of the belief system. You just cannot say that we are all ethical, and it's very abstract. There is no basis for that. Therefore, the challenge is, how do you fusion economics with ethics? Economics, as we just saw, is basically wealth and welfare, which is very temporal and material, whereas ethics is very spiritual. Economics only involve the human being and probably between the societies, but when it comes to ethics, it involves other creatures. And more importantly, economics, we talk about development only normal terms to develop in this world. But when it comes to ethics, we have to consider development or our success in the hereafter also. So it's a big challenge to fuse ethics with economics. With those basic definitions, let's now understand what has been the form of economic development as applied by the nations of the world for the last 6 to 7 decades. You all know this. First one was a capitalism and basically and communism. These are the two worlds. Until recently, or probably under 1980s, evidently and very strongly, there is two distinct group of economic development system. Capitalism means free economy, largely paid by private individuals with the minimum government control. And I'm just saying it's our basics, you people know it. but I think we need this to be reminded to take us through the rest of the presentation. And again, socialism means control is a controlled economy, very few liberties for the individuals, heavily influenced by government, and in fact most of the infrastructure and the general investment, even businesses investment, is by the government. And in few of the countries like India tried for things called mixed economy, but that was neither here nor there. Let's go through these two basic systems. The basic characters of capitalism. All the development deciding priorities are every individual has absolute right. All the gurus and textbooks, this is what they said, and this is what the nations who followed the capitalist system, they followed in the development. Nobody is supposed to control or regulate an individual because he is absolutely free to do what he wants to do as long as he makes profit. Whatever fellow human beings, he can act on selfish. Basically, all the development was decided by, priority was decided by supply and demand, nothing else. If there is a demand for a product, is a demand for a supply, you can go and start it, make as much money you can, and then where this demand goes, then you have to just shut it down. And that's what is happening. That is basically capitalism. Dr. Saab's reference earlier was completely on market, based on market, no other consideration. If the market takes this, you get the resources, you get loan, you get fund, you get land, you get electricity, you get fuel, only if there is a demand in the market. The wealth and distribution of society was captured only with four kinds of people. Land, those who have, they get wages. Those who have money, they can give for interest. And those who are clever entrepreneurs, they make profit. But as you know, a lot of people which belongs to none of these four. Physically challenged people, old people, depending, who cannot mentally determine people. None of them have any role, anything in the capital system because the government will not do anything because government has no control on the distribution of income. It is not profitable, there will not be a road and bridges. Government will not do it. Or that, as you know, all the capitalist system, all the infrastructure is private and they collect toll. Similarly, not only the income, naturally when the income is restricted to this four category of people, your wealth also will be restricted to these factors of production. What to act based on the demand as well by what the market force, so there was a complete living beyond means. And they were shooting to their own foot. The capital system was shooting to their own foot. No control, so people started spending beyond their means. I have some more details, and this will come later. There was no incentive for saving because people always lived out of the credit cards. No, in different government will look to that side. Even if you are harming the society, they must give up. In US, there is a law, if you pollute a river by an industry, the maximum they do it, you can fine. So a lot of industries, they paid the fine and discharged all their waste to the industry. There's nothing the government will do. If the government is, they cannot regulate, they will not say, they have no commitment. Because according to the capital system, they are not supposed to interfere. And there is no social responsibility. Poor remains the poor, disabled remain disabled, mentally retarded remain mentally retarded. Uncontrolled greed, that's the most important trait of the capitalism. Everything they want more than IRR, less than 20%, forget it. Speculation. One of the most important reasons for the crisis of 2008 was derivatives and forward trading. And we have a lot of statistics, but we don't have time. I just give you one example. A lot of you were dealing with the foreign countries. Until late 70s, the foreign exchange forward covered by internationally was done 80% for real need of the money. So you need $10,000 6 months now, you cover it for that $10,000 because you need to get that, pay that $10,000 to a foreign supplier. But it came to 2003, 2005, middle of 2000, it came down to 50%. The remaining 50% was just speculation. You just go and cover. Maybe the rates going up, you make some money. It goes down, you lose some money, so what? It's a speculation. When it came to the crisis of 2008, 80% of the forward cover was for speculation. Just can you imagine that? And that is trillions of dollars. How do you control the exchange rate? This was the level of greed the system took people down to. And of course, industry, we talked about this. Industry is a big killer, even their own economy. That raises the cost of capital. If you look at this way, a manufacturer borrows, he adds industry's manufacturing cost. A wholesaler borrows, he adds to that the wholesale cost. A transporter borrows, he adds the cost of the transporting charges. A retailer borrows, he adds to the cost of retailing. So if you look at it, 25-30% of the cost goes to the product as an interest. If you look at the whole chain, I think we talked about this, but I think, as they said, the proof of the pudding is in eating. So you can see what happened. The capitalism in 2000, of all these misdeeds, it has seen the result by itself. See, the two biggest pillars of capitalist system is the banks and the share market. If you look at what happened in 2008, the whole thing collapsed overnight. I think it was in August or October, I don't remember the exact date. One day, the whole thing, one single day. So of course it was a culmination of a lot of other things, but practically one day the whole market collapsed. There was total credit crunch. There was not even a single dollar in the London interbank market lent that day. All the credit cards were disordered. All the interbank, you see, the banks would lend to the other banks for the least rate. And that's the benchmark interest rate, and those who are at the banks here probably know. The interbank lending was stopped overnight, and all the outstanding loans were cancelled. The whole financial world actually was at a standstill on that evening. This is a snapshot I took from one of the TV listing. It is dated 12/13/08. The time is there. How much money all these companies lost? I don't know if it is clear to you or not. If you look at first is all financial companies, banks, brokers, insurances and all. See, the right hand side is their capital and the red ink is what the amount they lost. Most of them lost 3 or 4 times their capital overnight. The whole system collapsed. This is what happened to the stock market. The bigger circle is the stock value of each bank, share value of each bank in 2007. 1 year exactly before the crash day. The smaller pie is its value on the crash day. 90%, 85%, 90% has gone. What happened was when the banks lost their money, they started offloading all their investments. Naturally, the share market collapsed. There was a real cascading effect. Everything went haywire. India was not an exception. It is not about an American or a British problem. If you look at this, there are 5-6 finance companies who went bankrupt to this next week. BSP Melvins, they lost 9,736 crores and they had invested in 128 listed companies in India. Goldman Sachs, they lost 4,222 crores on one night by the time they closed that the trading. And they had 96 companies shares investment in the stock exchange. Lehman Brothers, Morgan Stanley, all of them. So this India was not an exception for this turmoil. The most important outcome was it was touching human life. People became homeless overnight. All the home loans were defaulted and people had to walk out of their homes. Literally, I have seen, and I am sure you must have seen people walking out of the crying from the home and going to public shelters. Students who had the loans, students loan had to be out of the college. Retirement savings were all gone. It started with those 2 retirement savings companies. and all the elders who were on the pension, they didn't have medicine to buy. You know, I cannot forget a lady crying, say that my mother is dying, I don't have the diabetic medicine to buy her the money. Large scale retrenchment. The whole trust was lost, the financial system, and probably it was one of the worst after the 1930 Great Depression. And everybody said that this is the death knell of capital system. I'm not saying this, none of us are saying. This is Newsweek magazine, came on October 13th cover story. The Fall of America Inc. It says that along with some of the Wall Street's most storied firms, a certain vision of capitalism has collapsed. It is not the finance companies and stock exchanges which is gone. The trust and whole system is collapsed. Again, this is Newsweek magazine's cover story. This is the famous economics magazine's cartoon. Capitalism has sold a souvenir, mug and t-shirt. And they themselves are saying, one important thing is, people have, this was not something unexpected. There was, warning, not by mullahs or Maulavis or Islamic scholars, but their own people. Like Karl Marx, even though he's a communist, Keynes was a famous economist, they all wrote about it. Even modern economists in the 1970s, Dr. Brevitz, Dr. Philip Wessner, they have very big authentic books written on this. In 2008, in 2007, the World Bank director, German economist Dr. Chang, has a report after being the World Bank director, he wrote a book, thesis on how bad the system is. Professor Von Weber has written a very big, very authentic book, and these all are available. And interestingly, all this started coming out, it was all dead with the first edition. It all started coming out the second and third edition after the collapse. There were, what happened, I think we need to understand. Of course, there were major flows in the capital system. And again, this is not the first time, it is the fourth or fifth time it is happening. It is the fourth largest punch in the system is getting. And this port now has full of dent. Now, I think I just picked up a book yesterday from the Dubai airport. See, now they are starting to revive it, the system. They know that it is just dying. Now they say that the capitalism 4 is coming. This is a next generation capitalism because they just can't forget it. And what is basically, I read a few pages in this, what it's basically saying is that it will be a revised version with a lot of government intervention, and that it is not a capitalism anyway. So I'm saying is the system has, I've been getting these punches every 15-20 years, but probably the 2008 was the severest. And it has been getting every 10 to 15 years. In addition to those basic fundamental flaws, two things happened in the lesson. This is greed, avarice, and this nothing other than inhuman behavior of people. That's what I said at the beginning. Economics, you cannot isolate human being. Any economics cannot be isolated from the human being. And this is what exactly happened. Two immediate provocation was the subprime loans and the credit default swap. And I don't want to go to the details of it. Subprime loan means loans to undeserving borrowers, which is happening in India also, through greedy investment banks, not income to support the MI. And this is exactly happening in our society. And artificial value, they increase the value, they got architects and engineers to certify 3 or 4 times the value of the houses, and there was surrogated borrowings. Totally devoid of any ethics or values. And the magnitude of money lost was about $100 billion over 3 years. The whole magic of housing finance, the housing economy was boosted artificially, and they lost it. And the credit swap is a system where you take insurance. You have a loan given to somebody, you take an insurance policy so that the default comes, you go to the insurer. That insurer reinsurance the second one, the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one. End of the day, the fifth man holding this policy doesn't know who is the first borrower. So when the first borrower defaulted, the cascading, everybody lost money. And that again was $64 trillion they estimated. Warren Buffett, who is the guru of the capitalist system, the biggest investment banker in the US, said this was the financial weapon of mass destruction. So they destroyed basically non-ethical greed. Otherwise, probably the system would have survived. You know, even those with those technical problems, no government intervention, no social responsibility, with all that, probably the system would have survived, but for the greed of human being and unethical practice what I have done. This is unfortunately, having seen this, and all people, and I am going to show you some of the codes. Unfortunately, after having these people have not learned that we need to talk to human, we need to take human being, we got to a belief system, then only it will work. Barack Obama said, and I know he's not God, but you know he's the president of the United States. You know what happened? The antithesis of capitalism is he has to nationalize the banks. He has to nationalize the General Motors. Just imagine. I remember back in 1960s when Mrs. Gandhi nationalized the Indian scheduled banks, Americans ridiculed her. Ridiculed her in every venue, including in United Nations. Now look at it. Barack Obama nationalized the General Motors motor company because otherwise about 10,000 workers were going jobless. So he had no other alternative. He nationalized all the banks. He bailed out all the banks. Then he said, we can't go back to